George Strait's son, Bubba Strait, has had to contend with his father's popularity and fame overshadowing his own work. Bubba seemed doomed until he discovered something no one else knew. This film shows what Bubba found and how it altered his life. George Strait's son, what happened? Let's begin. To appreciate what Bubba went through growing up, we must mention how influential his father, George Strait, was on country music. I think of George Strait when I think of raw, tough country music. He doesn't appear to have helped country music too. Nope. He established the country music genre that blended old-fashioned country with new elements. Made it fun for a new generation and everyone following. George did more than relive history. He made listeners pay attention. Many admirers say this is when country music felt true. He was alone in doing this old new stuff, therefore he had no competition. Many came to associate George Strait with authentic country music, or neo-traditional country. This made George king of country. His stats seem to warrant it. He is the 12th best-selling album artist in the US and one of the best-selling music artists of all time, selling over 70 million records in the US and 120 million globally. How did George become famous when his father taught middle school math? A longtime family. Rancher of 2,000 acres. George was born in Potee, Texas on May 18, 1952, and raised in southern Texas, Pearsall. After his parents divorced in elementary school, George spent a lot of time with his dad, John Strait. The lads helped their dad with ranch chores after leaving him to raise George and Buddy. They have practically run the ranch for years. It's no surprise they were well informed about the rural West. George's music career began at Pearsall High. According to him, he loved the Beatles. He said the Beatles were big. I listened to them and other popular bands a lot. George joined the Beatles-loving Stoics. Despite his poor guitar skills, George played in several high school rock bands. Funny fact, he didn't play country music then. He spent a year at Southwest Texas State University after high school. After secretly marrying his high school girlfriend Norma, he joined the US Army in 1971. He practiced guitar and sang in Hawaii since music was so important to him. This is when he started liking country music from Hank Williams, George Jones, Merle Haggard, and Western swing performer Bob Wills. At the Army base, he joined his first country band. After the Army, he graduated from Southwest Texas State University in agriculture. He joined Stony Ridge after seeing a flyer at campus. After becoming lead singer, he renamed the band Ace in the Hole. The Ace in the Hole band performed often at university clubs. They performed at many South and Central Texas bars, including Huntsville and Houston. The youthful band was popular locally and opened for the Texas Playboys. They performed George's songs like That Don't Change the Way I Feel About You, I Can't Keep Dying for a Houston minor label called D Records. The songs weren't popular, therefore the band lost money. Thus, band members worked local jobs to survive. George worked on his family's ranch throughout the day to get money. George had no music business ties while playing with his band. His friend Irv Woolsey, who owned a bar where George's band played, worked for a major record label before opening. Woolsey got Nashville fans to come to Texas to see George and his band. The music was good, but they didn't think Western swing would sell, so they left without making George a deal. Despite the setback, he went to Nashville many times to get a record deal, but every label rejected him because, like those who had come to watch him, the industry big shots weren't sure about his traditional style in a market that was more into polished images and pop country. After being rejected at every step in Nashville, George considered quitting music since he was given a job constructing cattle pens and would accept it. He even told his band he was resigning, but his wife persuaded him to play another year. George listened and gave music another year. His decision will shortly be rewarded. In February 1981, MCA signed him to a record deal. The contract required him to start with one song and receive a lengthier contract if it was successful. Unwound was the tune that almost undid people's bias against George's music. Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart placed it 6th due to its popularity. After delivering a successful song, MCA had to extend his contract. This started a successful music career. George signed his Steadfast group because he valued family and community. As he went solo, the band's best became his backup. Over 12 albums were released by George throughout the following decade. Each sold over 1 million copies. After Straight Country, his first honky-tonk album, which critics loved because it was different from pop-style country music, he released Straight from the Heart, which contained his first #1 country song, Full-Hearted Memory. After then, George had 17 #1 hits, 5 consecutive. After Eddie Rabbitt got sick, he performed in the Houston livestock show Rodeo. Over 20 gigs and 1 million fans attended his regular performances there. In 1985, he won the CMA for Best Male Vocalist and released his first greatest hits album. His album Something Special, which includes The Chair, topped the charts that year. George was named CMA Vocalist of the Year again in 1986, released his 4th album. But something terrible happened that year, nearly killing George. Tragedy struck. George and Norma had 2 children. Jennifer, their first child, was born October 6, 1972. By 81, they had their second child, Bubba George Harvey Strait Jr. Unfortunately, their 13-year-old daughter Jennifer died in an automobile accident at 86. She rode with 18-year-old Staples, Texas resident Gregory Wilson Allen. The car flipped over due to speed and poor handling. Jennifer, unbuckled, was partially ejected and died instantaneously. George limited his media connections after this catastrophe. He stopped giving interviews and avoided discussing his daughter's death for a year. He later explained his choice. I became more private after losing my kid. I shut things down then. I didn't want to chat to strangers. I had the attitude that nothing worse could probably happen. And so this is the way I'm going to do things to deal with this tragedy. George kept making music and had 11 songs that reached #1 in a row. His album Oceanfront Property was the first country album ever to start at #1 on the charts. George even started acting in movies with pure country. He sang many popular songs for the movie like I Cross My Heart, Heartland and the likes. He also released a special collection of his music called George Out of the Box, which sold over 5 million copies. Until now, this special collection is the best-selling box set ever in country music history. George kept putting out some great albums. He had become so revered that Entertainment Weekly said that by this point in his career, George could take even the lightest material and make it a hit on the radio with his style and grace. Then he received the National Medal of the Arts from President George W. Bush. At this point, he was already celebrating 3 decades in music. USA Today praised him for consistently delivering high-quality music effortlessly. Another review stated, "If ever there was a natural in country music, it's George Strait." He released Troubadour, which went straight to the top of the country album charts. The first song from the album, I Saw God Today, also reached #1 on the country charts. George received Album and Single of the Year CMAs for the album. After winning a Grammy for the same record, the Academy of Country Music named him Artist of the Decade. George announced his Cowboy Rides Away tour in September 2012 to coincide with Love Is Everything. Be his last. By the time Give It All We Got Tonight reached #1, George had 60 #1s. George broke Conway Twitty's record of 40 #1 hits on Billboard's Hot Country Songs chart with 60. He now had the most #1 songs of any musician in any genre. George set a new goal after breaking a record. Known for his 360-degree and festival-style tours, over 100,000 fans attended his final Cowboy Rides Away tour concert at a TAN-DT Stadium in Arlington, Texas, setting a record for the largest indoor concert in North America in 30 years. Beating the 1981 New Orleans Superdome Rolling Stones concert attendance, over $18 million was earned at the show, breaking the country concert record. In 2024, he had the most fans at a solo US concert. He broke the Grateful Dead record by 3,000 fans by entertaining over 110,000 at Kyle Field at Texas A&D. With such a legendary father, Bubba, George's only son, would expect to sit and do nothing as everything has been presented to him on gold plates. Bubba was close to his father as a child. The loss of his sister united the family like never before. His father's career exposed Bubba to live performances and songwriting early on. He witnessed his father's enthusiasm for music early on by following him to performances, rehearsal sessions, and other events. The child's thinking was molded by this early introduction. His father kept him focused on education. Additionally, this exposure balanced his studies and the distinctiveness of being born into a family, one of the best living musicians. Of course, his father's expertise, which included reality checks, informed this arrangement. Bubba wanted to follow his own way and possibly build a name for himself. After graduating from Texas A&M, he roped for the Professional Rodeo Cowboys Association. He and his father loved team roping. Fans recognized George wasn't only a cowboy in his lyrics. He was a real cowboy. "My dad taught me cowboy ways," he remarked. He was cowboy. "All the things I learned from dad about the ranch and cowboys work, there are certain things." He continued, "I'm still learning, but I try to incorporate my Western heritage into my life and business. Pass it on to my family." Everyone knows George was reared on his father's property. You may not have known that he rode horses, raised cattle, and competed in team roping at rodeos on his South Texas ranch. Ranching and team roping were his hobbies outside of music. He also raised steers for the Bubba Strait team roping classic. Over 20 years ago, he and his brother Buddy created a huge team roping event. They reportedly raised these creatures for pleasure, not profit. George was thrilled to learn that his son, George Jr., liked ranching like his father. George's weeks were topped by Bubba's team roping. George told the Team Roping Journal, "It's the best feeling in the world. I won 2 buckles with Bubba, which is the best." His father watched him compete in the Houston Livestock Show and rodeo. Bubba competed in the Bubba Strait Team Roping Classic, a long-standing annual event at the San Antonio Rose Palace. Bubba's modest, family-focused life began with his father and uncle, becoming the largest U.S. open team roping event with millions in cash prizes. Bubba, like his father, worked hard to become a professional roper. He achieved rodeo success and celebrity. Besides rodeo, Bubba was a brilliant songwriter. He kept improving his music skills after retiring from roping. He began writing songs with his father. He got his first big break when he appeared on Heartland in 1992. He solely sings with his father on stage since his 2006 debut. He has appeared on Living for the Night and Out of Sight, Out of Mind, despite not having any solo songs. Twang album. Bubba co-wrote songs for George's next 4 studio albums: Here for a Good Time, Love is Everything, Cold Beer Conversation, and Honky Tonk Time Machine. George said Bubba helped him write again. "Bubba revived my writing. I've enjoyed watching him improve as a songwriter. He loves it. His guitar playing is great. Working with him at this stage of my career has been a blessing." Bubba always accompanied his father to events like the Country Music Hall of Fame Medallion Ceremony, the 44th Academy of Country Music Awards, where George was named Artist of the Decade, and the 50th ASCAP Country Music Awards in Nashville. Bubba performed with his dad in Arlington, Texas during George's 2-year Cowboy Rides Away tour's final stop in 2014. He and his kid performed Arkansas Dave, a song he penned. That show was recorded for CMT's Bubba Strait Cowboy Rides Away live concert special after George quit touring. Bubba enjoys making songs for his dad and won't stop soon. As you may have noticed, family is a Strait family motif. Like his father, Bubba found the lady he wanted to spend his life with and married her. He met his wife, silver dancer Tamara Strait, during a San Antonio Spurs game. They got engaged in 2010 and married in December. The couple had George Harvey Strait 2 years after their wedding, and Jillian Louise Strait in 2016. Bubba doesn't use social media, but his realtor-wife publishes photos of them on Instagram. Her Instagram post being married is the toughest thing I've ever done preceded her motherhood. It's not always smooth sailing, but I'm so fortunate to have a husband who loves me no matter what, supports me in my work, and most importantly, walks in faith with me. In fact, Harvey joined his grandpa on stage at the Houston Rodeo Show, where they sang George's song God and Country Music together. Later, Harvey and his sister, along with their mother and grandma Norma, were present at Game 6 of the 2022 World Series. Grandpa George wore a Houston Astros hat and jersey while he and Harvey made the play ball call. That same year, George mentioned to Cowboys and Indians that his grandson played drums for a bit and might return to it later. But currently he's into baseball, hunting and fishing. The icon also added that his granddaughter had sung a little, sounding pretty good. Since it's too early to know what the kids will be in the future, their grandpa has simply chosen to support whatever they pursue. He understands that his own life story, from being an unknown small-town ranch boy in Texas to a global country music legend, is not a story he could have designed by his imagination. And to have that and still enjoy a close bond with his family, particularly with his son Bubba, is clearly a privilege not many superstars enjoy. Bubba on his own has made a name for himself in roping and music. Thanks to his natural ability in songwriting, even though he never really pursued a music career like his father, he still polished his skill enough to be able to share the stage with his father. Currently, Bubba and his wife Tamara are living at Texas Hill with their two children, Gillian and Harvey,